Hi everyone, this is Dragon GGY. This is the 14th episode of Module Review Update featuring module released from March to April in CN. Other than the usual heads up, I'm also planning to add a new section where you can better decide between which module to pick for each operator, like how we do in this series for operators with 2 modules. It's gonna take some time, but I think that's better in the long term than rating them in the current system, which I need to revisit all the time. So starting off this series, we have the X module for Thorns Alter, who's coming next month for the global server. The base effect is a great addition to alchemists because all their skills are instant, meaning that barring a very short lockout time, all their skills starts to recycle right after use. It allows a consistent 2 stack of skill 1 on field and a basically permanent skill 2 if you care to click the button in time. Attack increase also brings a considerable damage and healing improvement since all alchemist skills are also attack scaling with snapshot mechanic. Overall, it's a 18.9% increase to skill 3's total damage. For cons, this module is least impactful on skill 3. It only shortens the downtime by about 2.8 seconds because the alchemical units only last for less than half of the SP requirement, so Thorns still have to sit for 29.2 seconds on the field, doing very little. So overall, a QOL improvement to his daily experience, especially spamming skill 2 for a large area AoE and healing amenities consistently with skill 1, but doesn't quite raise the ceiling of him, which lies in skill 3. Next, we have Saileach Y. Upgrades brings very significant improvement for starting with her, effectively earning 4 DP extra. Let's use the 5-star standard bearers as a comparison since both 5 stars and 6 stars have the same skill 1. The difference is in their deployment cost. If you are a veteran player and have a full potential Elysium, or you are a newer player but still have a full potential Wanqing from the last CMY event, that will be 9 or 10 DP. Whereas if you didn't go crazy for Saileach, you are likely to have her at 11 to 12 DP before full potential, so by using Saileach before this module, you are barely making up for the DP difference while having a slower startup. But with this module, saving 2 while earning 2 is enough to fill up that gap and even get you extra. If you have potential on Saileach or do not have full potential on Elysium or Wanqing, I would further recommend going for this module. For cons, the base effect in my opinion isn't that necessary as flag bearers are usually deployed very early and safe in a corner where they are not likely to be targeted by range attacks. So unless you're using Saileach for support oriented functions right in the center of the battlefield or against sweaty starts, which honestly should be tackled with different strategies, aka please give Pioneer some space, the base really doesn't matter too much. And come to think of it, wouldn't it be better if the X and Y base are swapped? The last module wants Saileach to be around allies to provide that attack speed buff and debuff, so it can use the camo more, while this module makes starting with Saileach more profitable, so to ensure a smooth start, she gives the +1 block to whoever before her. Kinda a missed opportunity in my opinion. So overall, Module X team support based, but for 2 more attack speed up and down, a level 3 investment feels kinda costly. Module Y optimizes the starting sequence when you start with Saileach, which is more relevant, so I'd say 35 to 65 in terms of X and Y. Both need upgrades for best results. Next, we have Vigil Y. Do not neglect the base effect because if you have used Vigil skill 3, you'll know that he doesn't prioritize the target blocked by the reinforcement, which is a massive shame for the skill design. So at least this module made up for it. It further increases his damage quality, and being able to steal defense is also an addition to Wolfpack survival. Skill 3's damage is increased by 15.33% at 0 defense and up to 60.37% at 1000 defense. However, with how steal's mechanic work, even though both Vigil and the Wolfpack can gain 100 defense from attacking the target only loses 100 defense because only the strongest effect applies with steal. The full value of the module still depends heavily on Wolfpack survival, which unfortunately is a big ask, and in terms of survival, this module is certainly not on the same page as Module X. So at the end of the day, it's good QOL to daily experience, but still not enough to put him into a more meta position. The last module makes him better at stalling physical enemies, mostly with skill 1, and this one makes him better at actually killing the target with skill 3. That is, if the Wolfpack survives. Considering how Vigil is still a more offensive-oriented tactician, gonna recommend Module Y more. Coming up, Pozemka X. Despite having the utility-based X branch, this module is very close with Module Y in terms of damage, and will surpass Y starting from 1000 defense. Base Effect unlocks a flex deploy playstyle that actually fits her quite well considering she's always this 2-in-1 character. Basically, she's also a typewriter now, and that's a new legitimate way to utilize her nowadays when she's much less competitive than she once was in a sniper. A problem is that if you think about it, when coordinating the attack with the typewriter, in most cases, the typewriter should be adjacent to her, right? And increasing that range to surrounding 8 doesn't really make it easier, since both of them want the target in front of them, and doing otherwise would usually mean that you are missing out on either the frontal damage scale or the higher defense threat. To better put the numbers into perspective, here's a graph to compare the two modules. And yeah, Module X is not missing out too much, but also note that this is when the defense threat is in effect, so if Pozemka and the typewriter is going for different targets, it'll still be Module Y that has better damage. All things considered, I tend to favor the newer X module a bit more, since that ignoring dodge is no longer that much of an advantage when all the E damage or true damage easy cheats are all around the place. But at the same time, if you have already unlocked a Y module, I don't recommend going for X either unless you really want some new elements in her gameplay. For the last one in this batch, we have Gnosis Y. Base effect shortens skill 2 cycles from 6 seconds to 4.8 seconds, skill 3 from 40 seconds to 32 seconds. Overall, more significant in improving the freeze cycle with skill 2, shortening the cycle downtime by about 1.5 seconds. Damage-wise, the upgrades increase his skill 3 damage by 26.1%. Not bad, but also not a key aspect that we're expecting from him. Among other members in the faction, Silver Ash doesn't benefit too much from the upgrades since he already has a high inherent attack modifier. Dagon Rasher does benefit fully from the bonus, but Freeze as a resistance threat debuff ideally should work with odds damage, and to be honest, you would rather use the good old Warfarin skill 2 for better results. So in conclusion, the impact from this module depends quite a lot on a future stage where we may want a faster cycle or a future Colin trade operator who can combo with him well. For example, I don't know, Prologue or Thorns Alter with much more odds damage firepower than they have right now. His two modules are actually very similar to Suzerain, almost the same situation, right? Module X, higher fragile but requires level 3. Module Y, faster cycle, available on level 1. But for now, I'd say the previous one has better potential and has been used in CCBs 3. So I'm gonna favor that one more, Module X level 3 or Module Y level 1+. For the new module in April, we have Ines. Base effect allows her to redeploy at 20.15 seconds for the first redeployment if you have potential 3 or above. It would be 22.75 otherwise, but doesn't matter that much. That is almost the same as skill 2's downtime, so if you go with Bagpipe in team, instead of waiting in the same spot, you can just quickly switch her location after the first use, which is very in line with how you expect to play Agent. And it's also a great addition to skill 3, which is a passive skill, so in a shorter period of time, you'll be able to use skill 3 twice for faster DP generation. In case you are worried, the base effect works as expected with skill 3. Deploying with the Shadow Sentry doesn't count as her first redeployment. Cons are mostly because the upgrades don't really matter that much for daily use. It's mostly for some extra effectiveness against enemies with high attack scale skills, which I believe many of you couldn't come up with a lot of examples. So here's one. In the IS-3 map Craft Brawler Killer, there are these explosive eggs that deals a burst of damage and nervous impairment as you hit them. In fact, they only start with 100 base attack, and the difficulty scalings would increase that number by final multiplication. So in higher difficulties, they blow up extra hard. But since steal happens before final multiplication, if Ines attacks them, they will have all their 100 attacks stolen away and ends up with 0. So however much the multipliers are after that, they will literally deal 0 damage and impairment even when hit like crazy. So I guess good news for non-potential 5 Ines users, you can use the upgrades to fill up that gap to 100, but really for more casual use, you don't feel the difference most of the time, and the full module only provides 6.5% damage increase. I guess that's fair since sometimes you want your dummies to stay alive for more hits and more DP. Level 1 plus would be my recommendation. Next we have Logos Y. Since they are called extra attacks from the talent descriptions, these damage can actually trigger the base effect of this module, which means that Logos can gain up to 3 SP per attack action in ideal situations, which is mental. And on top of that, when Talent 1 is triggered, both extra attacks can land on the same target, and that in a single target scenario means an expected 33% increase to his total skill damage. This is the module that you want to use if you are dying to integrate him into the burned element system. However, since the upgrades don't actually increase the trigger rate of the talent, the extra attack instance and higher damage is slightly watered down. Yes, I deal more damage when I crit, but if I don't crit, all that matters less. Simple idea. When in situations where there are a lot of grunts that run alongside an elite or boss, the extra attacks might land on those grunts instead of them, so you don't get that SP from it. And most realistically, the problem with this module is that we had the one and only Delta module. In one skill cycle, Module Y is dealing much less expected damage than Delta, and even more so against climbing resistance and damage reduction, where Module Delta finds its way out with E damage. So in comparison, Module Y improves skill cycle under elite boss enemy environment, and if somehow both Y and Delta don't kill the enemy in one skill use, Delta Y may have the next skill much faster, which may give it some edge. Compared to the naturally backloaded damage pattern for Delta, Y's module is more front-loaded, and perhaps most importantly, it will work with the burn elemental system, instead of having a meaningless battle between the crosses and burn with Delta. Delta is still the goated go-to, with higher damage quality and quantity in one cycle, and scales with buffs a bit better. In my opinion, if you have unlocked module Delta, which you definitely should, there's not much point going for Y again. If you really want to play him in the burn team, it's up for consideration. Overall, still recommend Delta much more, but look at this Y module. I suppose this cycle improving module ends up with 33% damage increase alongside it. Like I said, Logos is Logos. Module Delta level 3 or Module Y level 2+. The extra instance of attack comes with level 2, and level 3 is rather minor improvement. To wrap this up, we have Mudrock Y. Both the base and upgrades are two-way offense and defense boost. The conditions are easy as well. She gets a 42.1% damage increase with skill 2 against non-Sarkaz enemies, which is impressive. However, the defense increase would matter less to Mudrock than Penance, since her key tanking feature is the shields, which blocks any damage. Damage increase is also a post-defense calculation, so it isn't a very significant increase to her DPH, up from 2.3k to only 2.6k. The design principle for her modules is pretty clear. Module X more for holding the line with mob or easier elites, improving her skill cycle, which is also part of her self-sustain. Module Y is more for dueling with slightly tougher enemies. A key reason for her decline in power nowadays are just better lane holding skills that cost less, have higher DPH, and even higher survivability than her. Both modules help by alleviating some of them, but not all of them. I'd say having higher offense would help slightly better, since defending against easier mobs are just anyone's job right now. So 45 to 55 for X and Y, both would need a level 3. That's it for this episode. I'm still gonna leave modules in May to the next episode. Again, quick tip, save Crown Slayer for her latest module. Also, a quick update, I'm planning to scrap the module preview series that I was pushing myself to publish on every release day. I think there are just much easier and better ways for you to get that information even quicker, so to save myself more time to prioritizing other contents, I will no longer be presenting those info via a video. Thank you for your time with the video. See you in the next one. Bye bye.